Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Vanessa Dunn, Guyton, and I am the founder and executive director of Hush No More. Hush No More supports survivors when they're ready to come forward to share their story, to get resources, or just to have someone to listen to. We also provide training in our communities all around the world on what we call the Hush topics: sexual assault, domestic violence, sex trafficking, child sexual abuse, incest, all of those topics that are very difficult to discuss in our families, in our organizations. And so we have those difficult conversations. And that's what we're going to do tonight. We are going to have a great show. It's going to be on military sexual trauma, one of those topics that is difficult to discuss. It's political, but we're going to talk about it because we need to have this conversation. So joining me is Diandra Poe. Hello, Diandra.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
I can.
And I can't hear you for some reason, even after we tested it.
I'm hoping that everyone
Let's see what's going on. All right. Can you speak?
Can you hear me now?
I still can't hear you.
Okay.
I don't know what happened. Let's see. You're not muted.
No, ma'am. Mic tested.
Okay. This is, this is going to be a good conversation because I can't hear you. And I don't know what happened. Can you leave the studio and come back in? Let's see if that'll do it.
Yes.
Right, so please be patient with us. I don't know. We had a good test run. Everything was good. But, sometimes things happen. So that's one of these moments when things are happening. So hopefully when she comes back in, we can hear her, because military sexual trauma is one of my favorite topics, not just because it's the military and I served in the Army, but also because it's one of those topics that affect me personally. I am a survivor of military sexual trauma. And a lot of people say, how do you tell people that? Well, it wasn't easy for me just to be able to tell people that. It was years, 17 years to be exact, that I was able to share my story and to talk about what has happened in my life. And so I'm really excited to have this conversation with Diandra because she's also a survivor. And we have a lot in common outside of the sexual assault as well. So let's see if we can hear her now.
Can you hear me now?
I am adding you in.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
You can hear me, and I can't hear you.
No.
Why? You can hear both of us, Serenity. Well, that is so weird because I can't hear her.
Man.
All right, let's see. I'm going to leave out and see what's going on. What about now, Diandra?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? The Verizon commercial. Can you hear me? Hear me now? I done started sweating everything because I hate when things don't go right. It's the military in me. When we don't start on time, we have technical difficulties. It just really bothers me, like, to my core. But I'm not going to let it distract me. We are going to have this interview tonight.
Yes. Mission continues. Mission continues. Charlie Mike.
Continue, no matter what. So I was telling them why I'm also a survivor of military sexual trauma, and that it took me 17 years to come forward and actually tell anybody what actually happened to me. And so I'm actually excited to have this conversation with you because we have a lot in common, not just the sexual assault, but also just life in general, serving in the military, trying to do something about it after the fact. So I want you to tell us a little bit about Diandra.
Okay. Well, let's see. My military service started later in my formative years. I decided to go in at the tender age of 31 years old. So I I went in after, but I spent the majority of my, my 20s being an FRG leader, being a spouse in the military. So I wasn't unfamiliar with this culture, this community that I kind of fell in love with, the people, the friends that I made. So I wind up clinging to this amazing mentor who I attribute very much to one of the people that helped save my life over and over again. I have many people that helped shape me as a leader and as a person, but he was one of those people very early on that saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. So needless to say, he helped me train for ROTC, helped me get a scholarship. There I was off to DC into ROTC at George Washington University. But unbeknownst to me, you had to commission before you turned 31, and GW didn't tell me that. So I shifted my plans, and I wound up getting accepted at Bowie State University. Yes, the Bowie State University in Maryland. Oldest HBCU in Maryland. Yeah, I'm going to tote my school for a second. So I commissioned out of Bowie in 2011, and in May of 2011, went to LDAC to be cadre. Was on my way. I was a mother of 3 also, so that kind of played a part in, what happened in this, the steps following. So as a mom, I'm constantly in mom mode, also in soldier mode. I arrived at my first duty station in Fort Stewart, Georgia. I was a dog-faced soldier for, a few months. I got this.
Civilians are going to say dog face. She called herself dog face soldier. No.
That's just the name of it. Yeah, Fort Stewart, home of the dog face soldier. So for military people, they know exactly what I'm talking about. I memorized the song. I was there. For anyone else, it's just it's a way of life down there at Fort Stewart, Georgia. But I arrived at Fort Stewart in November, top of December, in process there in December. And by January, I was already in victim mode. And late January, while I was at my home, another soldier and officer came to my home to visit me while I was heavily medicated and assaulted me while my children were asleep. So not even 90 days while I was after being stationed there. So everything about that experience didn't make any sense to me. I did not come forward right away. The training that I had it did not prepare me as a mom, as a person. I didn't understand the freeze aspect of fight or flight. In my mind, I wanted to protect my children. In my head, I couldn't understand why my body didn't react the way that I thought it would react when you go through all the training to say, if somebody does this to you, you do this. So I went through this months of not understanding the betrayal, my own betrayal of why didn't you fight? Why didn't you do this or that? But it was because of my daughter that I eventually came forward after she went through this bullying incident in school. Here I was lecturing my daughter about being brave and standing up for what's right. It kind of hit me that I was preaching to myself and also wanting to model that for my children. And I decided to come forward. In doing that, I really thought that it was going to be liberating, and it was not. It was not. It just wasn't. For many, many years, it was not. There was retaliation that came along with it. It got worse before it got better for me. There were moments where I was kind of feeling like I could do this. I could still serve and be a productive, service member. I could still be in the army. I could be a leader. I can tell soldiers, what to do and not to do. And again, I found myself at the tail end of my career and my body having this visceral reaction because by all means, PTSD to me was combat related. I had in my mind, I wasn't even thinking that I had PTSD and I could not even understand what was going on. So here I was at my trial trying to figure it all out. And suddenly the words glass soldier just plopped in my heart. I have no idea why. As I sat waiting for the verdict, and it was just kind of planted, the seed was planted. And from there, I was able to get justice. And as far as the judicial system went, I was able to get justice. But my fight in terms of sexual assault and the trauma was long over. And here I am today in front of you telling my story of where it started, to where we are now. And there's a lot in between all of that.
A lot in between.
Yeah.
So first I want to say thank you for sharing because it's not easy to share. Every time we share, it is a healing process, but it's very difficult. And I honor you in this moment. And I'm just so thankful that you agreed to join us because it gives us the inside light of what military sexual trauma really is. When you said PTSD, from a military trauma standpoint, what was that like for you? What does PTSD look like for Diandra?
Wow. So the first time that it was told to me was after the fact. So here I was 2015, 2016, 2016, away at training. Now, mind you, again, my trial was in 2014. So I had already seen justice. This person was in prison, verified in prison. But I was away at training. And I remember walking into the talk, and I know some people don't understand what the talk is, but I was in the command center doing my job, getting up to go to training, business as usual. And I walked in, and there was another officer there that looked identical to the person that assaulted me. I could not explain what happened. I just remember leaving. And the next thing I know, I'm on a plane home. I just remember just my body shaking, uncontrollable crying. I was afraid and I couldn't tell anybody anything. I was just, I was a mess. And no one around me knew what to do. I had one leader, I believe she was a major at the time, who came and held my hand. And she's the one that really, really advocated for me in that moment. For me, it started to look like I um, had no autonomy of my body, just none. I didn't understand the response I was having. I didn't understand the fear, the crying, the panicking. And from there, it snowballed for me into what would be probably another year or so before I would really understand what was going on with my body and trying to understand um, PTSD as it relates to MST.
I don't think a lot of people realize that you can get PTSD for sexual trauma, from domestic violence, from any type of trauma, right? And they don't really understand that it could show up as insomnia, anxiety, hypervigilance. Like so much can happen to you when you're sexually assaulted. And people don't realize this journey. Sometimes I've heard people say, get over. Why are you taking so long to get over it? PTSD don't always show up immediately, right? That's something that happens. So I think it's important for people to understand that this is a true journey and it's not easy. It's very difficult as well.
It is. My early symptoms were just nightmares at first. My husband, I remember going to see a sleep specialist. And even then, not really having a name for what was going on with me. Here I was having these lucid dreams where I was acting out my trauma in my sleep. My husband, I would wake up in the middle of the night, literally walking into walls, just trying to get away. Or I would wake up with my head inside my pillowcase, thinking that someone was trying to kill me. So here I was having these very lucid dreams. To me, that made sense. I was having nightmares. Something bad happened to me. That made sense. The panic attacks and everything else that came afterwards, I wasn't prepared for feeling like I was going to die. The nightmares made sense because it was unconscious, but being consciously awake and again not having any kind of autonomy made it worse because I wanted to be in control. I was like, I can do this. I want to be in control, and not having the ability to understand how to process what was going on just made it worse. And also not having the support to understand either.
That makes it real difficult. And even though the military does have the sexual assault and sexual harassment program, what we call SHARP in the Army, it really wasn't kicking off real big then either. So it had just started when it was getting popular when it happened to you. So there wasn't really the resources that you would have needed, which are there now. But it was really just beginning during that time frame. Because I know people are saying, well, why you didn't just go talk to a victim advocate? It really wasn't there during that time. You were like right on that cusp. So it's difficult to just be by yourself.
Right.
How was it with your family? Like, did you tell your husband right away? Is that something that you want to share?
No, I did not. I didn't tell him what happened right away, but he knew. By the way, I was not married to my husband at the time. We were just dating at the time. But I didn't tell him right away, but he knew something was going on with me. And I remember going to him and telling him and him encouraging me to come forward. And I was just like, ew, that's not something I want to do. But he accepted that, he let me go through this. And it's funny because as I'm saying it now, I can sit back and be like, man, he's a smart guy. I kind of married a smart guy because he allowed me to process this in my own time, and he didn't push me um, anywhere that I didn't want to go. So I'm like, yeah, he's a pretty smart guy. But he did. He let me go through the process in my own time, and he just encouraged me a lot. My faith is something that I relied heavily on, and something that my husband always that was like step number one for me. Always relying on my faith to help me get through anything, not to eliminate any other steps, but step number one for me is relying on my faith. And then I go through the process of everything else that happens. So that's from my head. For me, it was my husband first. My family, as far as my mother and my father and my sisters, I'm the youngest of 7 sisters. 10 it's 10 of us all together. 7, yeah. I didn't tell them right away either. It took me some time. My children, unfortunately, I had to have that conversation with them because the defense subpoenaed my children. And I was kind of livid about that. That's a whole different topic. So I had to tell my children in a way that was age appropriate. My children were various ages. I had a preteen at the time, and my daughter, I believe, was 9. So I had to figure out an age appropriate way to explain to my children something they weren't privy to, they weren't a part of, and they couldn't even like conceptually understand what does that mean when someone assaults you. It was extremely difficult for me, and I was mad. I was hotter than fish grease, just mad.
I would have been mad too. I would have been. I would have. Matter of fact, I really can't even imagine having to tell my children at such a young age, and they didn't even know. So you're just trying to figure out how you want to approach them with this, and so dealing with your own trauma and then having to inflict a form of trauma upon them as well is very difficult.
And I don't think anyone took that into consideration. There was no services for my children. There were barely services for me, let alone for them and the things they had to go through the this 2 year process of the trial.
Do you think that it would have made a difference for them early on if they received services, like through the journey right along with you?
Absolutely. My oldest um, has always deemed himself my protector as a single mom. And understand I'm also a survivor of domestic violence too. So my first husband, um, my son grew up understanding that. So he's always, he say your oldest is your experimental child, but my oldest was always seen to be my protector. He's extremely protective of me, extremely emotional to me. I fully believe that he should have, and we talk about it now. I mean, he's 25 now. He's 25 now, 24. But I there was a part of it that I think they were like, hey, this happened to your mom, and this is your role in this, all of this, and thank you for your service, and that was it. But I don't think they, until, as years go on, when they start understanding what all of this is, and then they see me fighting and advocating, they're like, oh, now it registers. So all the tears and things that make sense, they had to process all that by themselves, and they weren't included in it at all. Um, and I think for my son, it's one of the reasons why he does what he does now, because he's a huge advocate. I think it worked out in his favor, but my other two absolutely don't talk about it at all.
But he advocates.
Right.
That's pretty cool. I would like to meet your son. I love to meet male advocates. I really do, because it makes a difference. It truly makes a difference in our society when you hear it from a male perspective as well.
Sure, he's watching right now saying, yes, interview me.
That's my mom. Yeah, and she's strong. She came through it. So how many years did the officer, your rapist, get?
5. And
Yeah,
was
5 years.
let out 5 years and was let out 1 year early for good behavior. I was not informed. And he moved within 2 hours of my home, driving distance of my home.
So do you still worry about him, or does it?
Um, as it relates to it, yes. I can't help but look at faces when I go out. I'm still a part of this military community, so um, anytime I see somebody in uniform, I'm always looking under the cap. Um, Especially considering how connected this person was and all the other people that were involved in the assistance of my trauma. So let me make it clear. He perpetuated it, but there were people that played roles um, for the constant re-victimization of what happened to me. So I am consciously aware of when I'm in the presence of military personnel, what I say, how I act, what they look like, their behavior. Um, I don't think that I necessarily, because I'm moved away now, look around the corner any longer. But while I was in Texas, absolutely, security cameras, checking my my six all the time, and it sometimes I would just have to tell myself, like, I could feel the tension in my body physically say, D, you need to relax in order to get me in a place, or just being out with people, just making sure that I'm surrounded by people that I know I can trust.
You could trust. Yeah. And trust is difficult when it's somebody that rapes you that you know. That just shakes your trust, because now you like, everybody is a rapist. Everybody can harm me. And to get over that, that's part of that healing process, to realize that everybody is not out to hurt you, is a hard place to be. Yeah. Did you think that 5 years was enough?
No. No. And let me tell you why. Not just because I wanted justice, But because I wasn't the only person that he hurt, I just, I couldn't believe that me coming forward prompted anyone else to come forward. I don't remember all of their stories because I wasn't privy to that part of I was only given time to tell my side of my trial. Um, I think we were kept separated, but I know that I wasn't the only one there. So I don't remember all of their stories and how they were connected to him. So no, I don't believe that I don't believe that justice was served in that aspect of him getting enough time.
Did anybody tell you where at least he went to jail for a certain amount of time?
Oh,
Yeah.
at least you've gotten justice.
Yeah.
I've heard that.
Yeah. I don't think that's comforting. When people say that, that's not comforting. To say, well, at least he got some jail time because I didn't get any, or some people never get time at all. So it's not very comforting to hear that 5 years was something good, especially that it affected your life and it's still affecting you and your children and others as well.
It diminishes the other person. For me, I guess I've gained strength in telling my story and knowing that I'm trying to help other people right the wrongs that have happened to them. But when someone says something like that, I want people to understand that you're diminishing that person's journey and what they had to go through by saying that, at least. Because at the most, I should have never been in that position. So to say at least still to me just minimizes what I've been through, myself and my family.
All right, so I have one more question for you. I wanted to know, did you ever feel like it was your fault because you let him in your house? Did you ever have like self blame and that guilt because of that?
Absolutely. I can't say that I still don't. Uh, Again, the scenarios that ran through my head, my children were 20, 30 feet away. In my mind, and I've said that during my trial, and this is the part where I get emotional because in my head, if my son would have woken up, the oldest, I mean, I told the attorney this would have been a completely different trial had my son woken up and he had did something to my child. We would not be here talking about my assault. I I couldn't even imagine if my children had seen what happened to me, uh, especially being a single mom and having the dual role of being protector and nurturer. My instinct took over to allow myself to go through what was happening to me so that they did not. So, yeah, I blamed myself. You should have fought back. Or maybe you should have screamed and Elijah, I said his name, should have wake him up, help you. Yes, I went through all of it. And there are times when I find myself still in those dark places because as an advocate, as a social worker too, uh, I take I just absorb people's energy. I absorb their stories. So I do find myself sometimes having to take a break because I can go to that dark place again and start asking myself, why, what if, to pull myself out because that part is gone and be present in where I am right now.
So thank you for sharing that. I know you got emotional, but it happens. We'd be like, where is this coming from? I thought I was good, right? You'd be like, I didn't think I was gonna get emotional tonight. It happens, right? It happens to me. But I do want to say this. Through this whole entire journey, a lot of times we have this self-guilt, this blame, this shame, it's on us. My goal is for people to understand that the shame does not belong to the person, to the survivor. The person who does the crime should be shameful. They should be guilty. They should be receiving all of that negative energy. That's who it belongs to because they do not have a right to touch you. They do not have a right to harm you, to come into your house, to do anything to you. I don't care. Always, I don't care if you have on a mini skirt and some red high heels. They shouldn't touch you. And that's who should take the blame and the shame. And I wanted to ask you that because I know a lot of people that watch this and listen also know what that shame and guilt feels like. Because I felt the shame and guilt. I felt like it was my fault, but it happens and we have to move on, but we have to push all that into the person that hurts us. And that's so important that that happens. And so I did want to tell you that. And I'm thinking that if my children were in the room next to the next room, I probably wouldn't have screamed either because I want to protect my children. That's what we do. We protect our children, right? And he should be embarrassed and shamed that he came into your house knowing that your children were there. You're a mother and you're a single mother. So I'm proud of you for that journey. So what are you doing now? How are you advocating about this now?
So in 2016, I med boarded, or basically I was medically retired from the military in November of 2016, and found myself like, what are you going to do? I am an over ambitious person. I will say that. I was a fighter. I fought to the end, but ultimately I realized that I was going to have to fight from a different foxhole. I still wanted to be strategic. I still wanted to play chess. I still believed that this was an issue. So there I was standing at at the hospital in Fort Hood, Texas, like, D, what's your next move? And this is the first time that I've said this out loud. So I wind up having, literally the day before that I was supposed to sign out for terminal leave, I ran into someone who I deemed made my life hell toward the end. And when I saw her, here came that visceral reaction. And I found myself sitting in the hospital the day before that I was supposed to sign out on terminal leave. And they were questioning whether I needed to stay, because I was I was overcome by so much. And I remember a social worker came in there and she said, I see something in you. And I don't believe that it's taking you upstairs. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to sit here and talk to me. And it was then that I started working out what I wanted to do next. I want to be a social worker. I was in the process of getting my master's for emergency management. And I was like, no. And then I felt that like knock on the back of the head, and those words, glass soldier, just kept hitting me again. So I rested for a couple of months. I took some much needed break. And in 2017, after moving to Dallas, I enrolled in a master's program at UTA. I got my master's in social work. And then I started figuring out how I was going to advocate for service members. And in the midst of a pandemic in 2020, Glass Soldier was born. And I said, I don't want to just be a social worker. I want to be the change. I want to see the change. So I formed Glass Soldier, my nonprofit, dedicated to so many different things, but more than anything, we are dedicated to the elimination of sexual assault in the military. Not the reduction.
I love it because it helps us when we do something positive with our trauma, right? When we turn it around and we create our own narrative, we create our own journey. We do this on our own. We take back our control, and it's going to be a great, fantastic nonprofit. You're brand new, and I absolutely love it. I hope everybody go to your website and check you out. Share it with individuals who are survivors of military sexual trauma, because it is a great resource, and I absolutely love that as well. So Glass Soldier. When I heard it, I was like, that is so good. Relate to that. Like, then sometimes I wonder, can people see through me? Could they see my trauma? Could they see things that have happened to me? And if anybody knew, and didn't know what I was hiding inside. And so it resonated with me to the fifth level. And I absolutely love it. And I know that it's going to be very successful. And I hope that people go there and donate, click that donate button and support it, because there are a lot of survivors who have served their country who are struggling with this. So I love it.
I'm glad that you said that it resonated with you in a different way, because when I get the question about why I chose Glass Soldier, for everyone, when you see glass or they think about glass as something different, for me, it's just that the multifacetedness of glass, like tempered glass, strong, broken, put back together, stained glass is beautiful, transparent, vulnerable, all of those things. So uh, that's what that's where it was for me at the core. But I love that everyone can identify with it so in a different way.
I absolutely love it. And I do love stained glass. I think it's pretty as well. So I like that that was the vision that you had for yourself that you're put back together in such a beautiful way. I love that. So you're working on your doctorate. You are about to be Dr. Poe.
I am.
Tell us about that journey, because it is a difficult journey, and I'm very proud of you because you're close to finishing. So tell us about that journey and the work you've been doing.
Yes. So and outside of going headfirst into my master's in 2017, I graduated in 2019 at UTA, and I wanted to pursue my PhD at UTA. At the time, I was on the fence of trying to figure out what my thesis was going to be about. I have a son who's on the spectrum, and also my work with sexual assault. So here I was like, what do you want to do your thesis on? And my son was like, do your thesis on ASD, mom. So I did, but I kept military sexual assault in my back pocket. Inadvertently, I submitted to a couple of schools, my school and then USC and another school. The day after I graduated from UTA, USC sent me my welcome letter and said, hey, we want you a part of the DSW program. And I was like, what's a DSW? So when I tell you I cried like a baby, I cried because here I was, like, I didn't understand the difference between a PhD and a DSW. And a lot of people still don't because it's very new. But what spoke to me the most about this was it still allowed me to do the clinical work that I want to be able to do with my nonprofit and to come up with the ways to solve problems. I like to tell people that the DSW is like the PhD students. They go out and say, "Hey, we found out there's a problem here," and the DSW students go, "Hey, I think I can solve that problem." So that's how I look at it, and I absolutely love it. I am 31 days from my defense. I had to look at the clock real quick because it's coming up. 31 days from my final defense. Even though we had our virtual graduation, I still can't officially be called doctor yet. But yes, I'm at the tail end, and tears and gray hair, new wrinkles and all. So I'm ready.
You're ready. I am really proud of you because you are an example of trauma can't stop you. It's a choice. Like, you could choose to say, I'm going to just let this end. We decided we want to live or not. We decided we want to push forward. If we want to have a bad day, I am very intentional on today is going to be a good day. Today is one day that I move forward, just speaking over my life. And for some people, they'll say, well, no, I didn't choose because, I have PTSD and it's hard. I'm not talking about those. I'm not talking about the ones who are struggling mentally. I'm talking about the ones who want that point of your healing journey. You make choices, and you're making some really good choices, and it's not over. It's definitely not over for you. And I'm looking forward to all the great things that you're going to do. And I hope that people are watching this saying, she's doing it. And I'm really proud of her. And she didn't let what happened to her affect her. She took control of her life.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. Thank you.
Yeah, it means a lot to me because it's a struggle. I know the struggle. And so,
It is.
The military lost a good soldier. You know, you are a great soldier. You are. You are a soldier for life. And unfortunately, something happened to you that derailed the path that you had for yourself.
Yeah. And that's pretty much it. I remember I remember sitting down and getting a counseling statement from one of my leaders after I had a panic attack. And I remember distinctly, like you go back to certain parts of the conversation. Previously, I had looked up to this woman because she had done some really great things in her career. And now I was on the other end of someone not having the proper education about PTSD. Not to discredit everything that she had ever done, but she just didn't know what she didn't know. And here I was sitting across from her, and I distinctly remember her saying, the military doesn't need broken soldiers. And it just like, I was like, I never viewed myself as broken. I didn't see myself that way. I know that something happened to me. I saw myself as a fighter. I definitely was trying to be a fighter, but I never saw myself as broken. And in that in that particular moment, it made me question myself as a leader, my ability to pick myself back up. And I'm like, am I broken? Can I be put back together? Can I be made into this beautiful stained glass that I'm thinking about in my head? Um, but it also just gave me purpose. Later on, I look back at all those words and all the no's, all the nasty things that were said to me. Um, and I try my best. I say I try my best because it's like you said, it's a struggle. I try my best all the time to use those as bricks, the pathway that will lead to someone else walking a different journey than me. We don't have to necessarily take those bricks, those punches in the face. Um, Let me lay down a new path for someone else to not have to go through this. So, and it's
I
like I
love that
said,
analogy.
it is a struggle.
Laying bricks for this path so nobody else have to go through this path. That makes a difference. Do you ever think about going and talking to military units and leaders about some of the things that happened to you and what was said to you?
I do, and whew, I do. At first, I didn't think that I was going to be able to, because again, it's being around military personnel. I I have to recognize, and I'm again aware of now of my bodily reactions, but also my bias that I carry. Um, and knowing that there are some outliers, there are some leaders out there that absolutely are like not in my ranks, not in my army, not in my navy, whatever service there are. I know that they're out there. My goal is to try to meet them, but also to be brave enough to stand in front of the ones that don't know what they don't know. Because what I don't want to happen is for another leader to do what they did to me. You're only doing this because you don't know what you don't know. But let me educate you. Let me show you how to be that outlier.
I like it a lot. So I have a lot of military victim advocates that follow me. And so if you're out there and you would like her to come and speak to your unit, she's willing to come.
Mm.
You're ready to go. You're ready to go because it's so important that they hear from survivors, right? And officers, because for some reason they think that sexual assault only happens to enlisted and not to officers. And that's what stood out to me about your story as well, is that you're an officer and it was by another officer. And we know it happens, but all don't come forward to speak. So you have some comments that I want to share with you. Catherine said that you are a hero. I would like to agree with her. Serenity said, that's why I'm in Gracie Breakdown, women empowered to learn to fight for my dignity. And she also said she was punished for losing her ability to walk and for coming forward regarding her sexual assault. Everything revolved around being disgusted that I was broken. Sereni, thank you for sharing with us because it's always hard when you're a survivor of military sexual trauma. Okay, so thank you, and I honor you in this moment as well.
That is beautiful. That she's even able to, vocalize that. It's for some people they're not there yet. Even if they're not ready to put up the fight, just to even say it out loud, to acknowledge that this is. So I honor her as well. Just being able to say and walk in your truth is one amazing feat.
Yeah, she decided to hush no more. She decided to hush no more. Miss Janet said, "Thank you, Miss Poe, for telling your story. Congratulations." And here's a said, "Thank you, Dr. Poe." Stick on your
Oh,
Dr. Poe.
there it is. I'm waiting for somebody to, you know what? No one in my family has given me anything yet with doctor in front of it, and I don't know what they're waiting for. Like, it's a done deal. So somebody please give me something with the words DR in front of
Yeah,
it.
it's coming. So she's already said it. You are the doctor. You are the doctor. And Catherine said, your redirection gives purpose a stronger, much deeper drive towards succeeding.
Oh, wow. Thank you. I felt that. Like, thank you.
So I'm really proud of you as well. So, is there any last words that you want to share with everyone before we get out of here, or something that we did not discuss that you would like to? Because I know we talked about social innovation. If you want
Yeah, so that's my new title that I'm calling myself, a social innovator. That's another thing that I like about this DSW program. So a social innovator is someone who's looking to create new ways to solve old problems. And I know that sounds so like complicated, maybe woke. I don't like using that word, ugh, but I just want to. It's the goal is for me to be able to solve this problem in a way that may have been looked at, but not seriously. So, for our organization, and what I want to say for people is really to follow what we're doing. We're not just talking about sexual assault, we're also talking about the intersectionalities that sexual assault have on our veterans and our service members, substance use disorder, homelessness, suicide. Those things intersect with each other. And what's not being talked about is the separation of those two things when it comes to statistical data. And again, educating our leaders to recognize that those signs and those symptoms of what that looks like when someone's been through trauma, because as we said earlier, it doesn't always present itself the way that people think. It's not as black and white as you think it may be. So, soldiers that, just suddenly start misbehaving, or, getting on drugs, or not showing up to formation, oversleeping, things like that, start asking, the appropriate questions. It doesn't always have to be, sexual assault trauma, but you should be asking those questions as a leader. What's going on here. So our organization is not just focused on sexual assault, but just the intersectionalities of it, and coming up with initiatives to do so. What we are doing right now is directly connected to the I Am Vanessa Gillian Act, in preparing our country to allow service members to report outside of the Department of Defense. That's what we're doing. So, what I would like to say to everyone is please support what we're doing. Please share. I can't emphasize it enough how much sharing is key to advocacy. Sharing our story could mean the world to one person who's hurting right now or needs an outlet. Sharing can also put us in front of the right person that says, I have what you need in order to get this out there. So please share our message, share what we're doing, support what we're doing. We have a rally, our very first fundraising rally coming up in Austin, Texas next week, the 9th. So I'm very excited about that in Austin. And then just going forward, looking forward to finishing this dissertation so y'all can see my face more often.
Yeah, I love that you're talking about the intersectionality the intersection of it, because it's real. It is real. And I didn't realize it until I looked back on my life and saw all of the additional trauma that occurred after their sexual assault. So the suicide, the alcoholism, all of those things truly happens to veterans after this, and also civilians. So thank you for the research that you're doing. It really is going to make a difference for so many. And I look forward to us even working together. I'll support you any way that I can. Anything that you need me to do, I most definitely will, because you are doing great work and you are definitely genuine.
Thank you. I
Definitely.
believe that collaboration is how we're going to get this done. I mean, I'm no way, shape, or form do I think I'm the only cereal on the shelf here. So the more that we have, the more we flood, the better our odds are of elimination, and not just reduction, total elimination. And I won't accept anything less.
I love it. We have some more comments. Serenity said she's getting there. It's stories like yours and mine that encourages her to keep moving forward. Keep pushing forward, beauty. Keep pushing forward. It's possible. And so Dr. Jackson Price, she's also a doctor too, right? She said, Diandra, my dissertation was on the perceptions of female veterans help seeking experiences when they disclose MST after they have separated from military service. Good luck with your defense.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I actually participated as one of her subjects as part of her interview process, and she did a really good job, really great job. And Catherine said, thanks to Hush No More for bringing this jewel of a resource to us. You are definitely a jewel.
Yeah.
And she said, hoo-ah, glass soldier.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you for the support.
So how can people get in contact with you?
Absolutely. So our website is www.glasssoldier.org. That's www.glasssoldier.org. My email address is my first name, Diandra, Diandra, at glasssoldier.org as well. You can also request to speak to me, send us a chat. We're also collecting survivor stories. So anyone who wants to tell their story as well, a platform such as yours is amazing. So I hope that invitation is the highest form of flattery, but we also want to hear survivor stories as well. And it, again, it doesn't have to be the glossed over, I turned this into a passion or anything like that. If you're proud of yourself for doing what you're doing by getting up in the morning and getting yourself together, I want to hear your story, because sometimes that's probably the best that you can do. So we're taking survivor stories. We're asking for volunteers. It's all there on the website. So go to the website, check out what we're doing. We're building, as I'm a baby in the advocacy world, but we're building and we're going somewhere. So yeah, if you want to get on this snowball that's about to be an avalanche of advocacy, jump on in.
I love it. And I'm hoping that victim advocates follow you as well and support you, and the SARCs and the program managers, that they get on board too and actually support you in this process, because it's important. Yeah. So thank you. Reach out to her. She's absolutely phenomenal. She talks to everybody. She makes everybody feel love. So reach out to her. She's a great resource, and I'm really thankful and honored that you joined us to have this important conversation.
Thank you. Right.
So what's coming up for Hush No More? Hush No More has poetry night. We are doing Rock Truth Poetry on 9 July. If you have any poetry that you would love to share, we would love to have you. We will be live on the 9th of July, just healing through our poetry. If you have written any poetry that goes along with our Hush topics, if it's empowering, encouraging, please go to our website, www.hushnomore.org/poetry. and submit your poetry to us. We are doing the Hush No More poetry book that is going to represent the stories of survivors and how they heal, because poetry is a great way to start this journey, along with writing and art therapy. We have art therapy every Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join us. That's another way to heal. And it's so important to just keep moving forward. So join us on this journey. If you have any ideas for us, reach out to us. We are actually going to start some dance therapy soon. So follow us. Make sure that you join this journey. I don't know about that now. I don't have any rhythm. You got a little bit of rhythm going. 17 July, if you are in Columbia, South Carolina, we are having a yard sale to raise money for Hush No More Domestic Violence Walk. We are taking donations. All donations are tax deductible. We'll give you a letter for anything that you submit, or you could join us, set up a table for $10, and just have a good morning from 8 to 12, selling your items and raising money to support domestic violence. And on the 7th of August, we are having a college forum for college students who are going to college or going back to college. We are going to talk about how you can protect yourself as a college student on campus and some of the dangers that are on college campuses. Please, please have your college students join us, because this is going to be a real conversation about real life when you're going off to college without your parents. So that's going to be great. And remember, we are having our domestic violence walk October 16th in Columbia, South Carolina, and also virtually. So go to our website for more information about all the events that we have coming up and all of our resources as well. You can always call us at 1-888-285-2161. You can message us. You can go to our website and contact us, but we are always here to support you and to listen. We have your back. So we hope that you join us every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to hear from another survivor, advocate, or nonprofit organization. If you are interested in becoming a guest on our podcast, please go to our website and apply, because we are looking for more individuals to grace this platform. Thank you once again, Diandra, Mrs. Dr. Poe, aka the Glass Soldier. Yes. Thank you for gracing us with your presence tonight, and it is truly an honor that you shared something so intimate and personal as military sexual trauma. And we will always be here to support you. Peace and blessings, everyone.